Hello and welcome to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke is here, back with Tom Jacobs. Tom, every week on the PGA Tour is a story of a long shot, one that we're familiar with from the DP World Tour. Matthew Pavon, amazing victory for him, 1-2 with another DP World Tour, Nicolai Højgaard. But here we are for what I think is the 10th week in a row with a short odds winner on the DP World Tour. What's your mental state at the moment?
It's tough. I actually think last week was the worst golf betting week of my life. And look, like there's plenty of losing weeks, right? Like I can cope with losing weeks, but like not even have a pulse over the weekend. Like Patrick Rodgers was my sole hope over the weekend, and that's not a position I ever want to be in. So yeah, I was really struggling with that from that respect. But from a completely golf fan point of view and our show point of view, right? Like Matthew Pavon beating Nicolai Højgaard on a PGA Tour event at Torrey Pines is magic for us, right? That's exactly what we want. We want to be able to give the listeners those guys and give some information on them. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that we told people Matthew Pavon was going to win on the PGA Tour next year, but everyone that has watched our show for the last year will know our thoughts on Matthew Pavon and how he's played in certain events and how he's gone from journeyman to a winner on the DP World Tour and a pretty competent player for weeks on weeks after that. And maybe would have just seen this sort of thing coming. So I think it's a good advert for this, that he's won on the Farmers Insurance Open last week. In terms of what we do about the DP World Tour and the winners so far, I mean, Hollison winning the week after betting him is pretty cruel, right?
Right.
And I don't think it was an any better golf course for him. I think it's just Ollison. Like I think that we've sort of said this in the past, right? Like I don't have any problem with backing Ollison in the Masters. Like if he's just on that week, he's on that week, right? I don't think it matters who he's playing or what course he's playing. It's just if he's got the game that week, he can rock it, right? So pretty happy with our kind of pre-year predictions of what's going to happen with the kind of the Højgaards and the Ollisons. Like we said, Højgaard was the best of the rest. We said Ollison was in for a big year, and both of those are kind of started off pretty well. So they weren't hot takes by any means, but I'm pretty glad that we're kind of early and right on those. So in that respect, good. In the betting respect, bad. Which means that we need to find a long shot winner in Bahrain, I guess.
I think so too. I think it is just so odd, the role reversal. Maybe, I mean, it makes sense. The cream of the crop is now facing potentially a weaker field. So these guys, I mean, we had two DP World Tour events happening simultaneously with some really good guys playing at the top, right? I can make that story and understand. And Thorbjorn is somebody, that's going to make some noise on the PGA Tour, so it's just going to be weeks like this. He's now withdrawn. Rasmus leading, the betting market pretty substantially. What's going to happen in some of these fields when inevitably Rasmus gets a sponsor's invite on the tour, or guys just need a few weeks off? We're gonna be faced with some really wide open fields, some top 10 guys that get PGA Tour cards that I guess when you tell that story, it would probably lead to somebody like, wow, Matthew Pavon got a PGA Tour card and look what he's done. So the storytelling is going to remain the same and the talent's going to shine through. And when they get put in these moments, if the PGA Tour is letting these opportunities take advantage of, like, good for Pavon, good for what we're talking about and telling this story, because these guys are going to be players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, look, you made a good point to me off air, and we won't linger on it for too long. But Adrian Moronk, obviously, it hasn't been confirmed, right? I think it's the first thing we should say. But Adrian Moronk is all but going to Live Golf, and he was the last person, or one of the people, to get those top 10 cards. And Rasmus was the last person not to get his card. So will he retrospectively get a PGA Tour card? I'm assuming not, Sky. Like I think he won't be given it. But he will, like you said, probably be given a few sponsors invites, and that might be how they make it out to him. Like, look, come and earn your special temporary membership, and then just get on here next year anyway. So I think what it does do is, like you said, it probably brings the fields, it weakens the fields, but then brings the best to the top pretty significantly, and they show themselves, which I think is a good thing. it does open that pathway to the PJ Tour for someone like Pavon, who wouldn't have ever, let's face it, like, doesn't matter how well he would have played last season, if that thing wasn't in place, he wouldn't be on the PJ Tour because he wouldn't have got enough ranking points in the world rankings, wouldn't have got invites and things like that. So it's a great pathway. We've just seen what the PJ Tour U has done with Nick Dunlap and players like that. So the pathways are great. Is it detrimental to the DP World Tour? Probably. I think we've had that discussion in the past. But what it does do is kind of makes these betting events tougher for us, which I guess it's just a challenge all for ourselves, right? Like it's something we've got to look forward to and relish the opportunity to kind of counteract the difficulties. I guess is a long way of saying it's going to be a little bit harder from now on.
Yeah. I mean, there's frustrating times in the PGA Tour too, just because long shot winners are happening. Yeah. Not everyone hits a Chris Kirk ticket like you do and sets you up for, a long time where people are definitely, I mean, our friend BK on Twitter is losing his mind these days, and seeing some 3 a.m. tweets on a Saturday night about what in the world is going on tour. And I relish these type of ways that they go after it, stories that they get to tell. And I think that is so fun for those. And I think that's the story of golf and why we're in love with the game and why we're sitting here doing the show and previewing events that we're passionate about. And I think that just segues us right into this week. So you said it's pronounced the Bahrain. How does
Bahrain Championship?
Yeah. Bahrain Championship. So the Kingdom of Bahrain is where it's played. Royal GC. 2013 was the last time this event was played at this course on the DP World Tour. Paul Casey was your winner then. We've seen on the MENA Tour in 2019, 2020, a handful of guys do have a couple of events there or some shows, but tell the folks what we're in for this week, Tom, from what you have seen.
Yeah, so from what I've seen, like anything, it's slightly beneficial to have length, but I don't think it's a prerequisite. They're pretty easy to hit fairways. If you miss them, they're not too punishable. It's going to be pretty resorty. It's going to be low scoring. If you've got some links form with a bit of form standing up in the wind, I think that's going to be beneficial in Bahrain. It's set to be quite breezy over Friday, I believe it is. So, look, I think we're pretty much looking at what we looked at last week. I don't think there's going to be too much different from last week. You mentioned the MENA Tour. There's probably, 3 or 4 guys that have actually got that, and they're further down the odds board, which I'm sure we'll come into later on with those. But yeah, I think it's one of those ones where you could galaxy brain it and try and really figure it out, or you can just look at the trend of recent winners on the DP World Tour and just say, look, it's probably going to go to one of these Rasmus, Yannicks, or whatever, and you might be playing for a bit of place money if you don't want to back those. I believe, and I'm sure you believe, there are some players in that kind of second tier that can still get the win and still probably fit in a reasonably short odds scenario, I guess. But yeah, I think it's one of those that it's going to be pretty straightforward. You've got to do your scoring on the par fives and go that way. So I would look for current form. I look for people to play well last week, and I'd look for people that can stand up in a bit of wind as well.
Yeah, I mean, last week I was very, very driver focused. I probably won't be as much.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, I tried to look at MENA Tour leaderboards and guys that their games and what it was relevant. Robin Roussel was a winner. Somebody maybe a little bit more accurate. I think it can be played by all, and kind of going to go that route with where I'm picking of guys that are in form, still going to take shots down the odds boards. I'm not going away from what I'm comfortable with, kind of in these type of fields. But so yeah, I'm starting in the 40s for me. Is there anybody that caught your eye on the dwindles? Now, Thor was in the field. If you woke up bright and early with the birds on Monday morning, you might have gotten some odds with both of Rasmus and Thor, and you could have gotten some deeper. There's been a lot of slashes overall, but anybody from up top interest you?
I wanted to bet Yannick Paul. I think it's time for him to get a win again, but I don't want to bet him at sub 20-1. I would just rather wait until a slightly deeper field. Same comments for Keita Nakajima. We mentioned him last week, and the fact that eventually his good play would come to the fore and translate here, and it has. Didn't get to either of them. The other one that's just short of the one that I've bet first, Sebastian Soderberg has made 17 cuts in a row. He's hitting the ball incredibly well. We know he can win because he has done already. Beat Rory McIlroy in the playoff, as we love to touch upon every time. RB will love Sebastian Soderberg. So I struggle to back him at 33-1, but it's very warranted with the play that he's doing so far. And the player that I'm backing at just a couple of points bigger is hardly a superstar at the moment. So every reason, I think, for people to back Sebastian Soderberg or one of those kind of Yannick Pauls and Nakajimas, I think.
Yeah, I think Nakajima was the one that stood out just from the sense we had the conversation last week, right? Of odds discovery, I think is the best way we can kind of define this with somebody like him. And that brings me to a point, I guess, with these fields. Maybe we'll touch on a guy that I'm intrigued on betting. I'll save it for that conversation. But Nakajima is what he was 40-1 last week. Now, half that price without Thor here after a good showing. It's hard. It's hard in that range. I just still feel like the discretion between form and pedigree and what we're working on is enough for me to still keep searching down the odds boards, but I'm pretty intrigued at a pair of arguments, I guess, you have in the 30s here in the States. Is there still 40s out there for you, or what are you looking at for your next two?
Yeah, so the first one's 35-1, the second one's 40-1, but I'll go into them. So the one thing, and this is Steve Rawlings on a Betfair in the UK, he writes a course preview pretty early on, normally goes out, it'd be Monday morning for you guys, sometimes Sunday evening for us as well. And what he does, he kind of goes back through the years and when the course has been played well and things like that. He does a great job of it. I normally use it as a bit of a shortcut, if I'm being completely honest. And what he did flag on here, which we would have got to anyway if we didn't, but what he did flag and kind of give us a good reminder was Montgomery's designed plenty of courses that have been used on DP World Tour in the past. And it's been a while, but he designed the 2016, 2017, 2018 Dutch Open course. It's literally called the Dutch. Carlton House, which is a 2013 Irish Open, and then the course that they used for the Turkish Airlines Open, which was a really good event back in the day. It was a really good DP World Tour event, right? Tiger Woods used to play in it at times. So I think Victor de Brisson famously won there that year. So there's plenty to like about those courses. And the person that brings me on to is Joost Luiten, who we talked about a lot. Probably talked about him a lot since we started this show, Sky, in different variants, right? I think probably when we first started talking about him, it was this long forgotten player that hasn't played very well for a long time, struggled during COVID, and we're looking for him to get back when he was probably triple digits. Then last year, he went for a really good period, didn't he, where he looked like he was going to win again, put himself in a position multiple times. It's when Olesen won, I think, in Korea or Japan, one of those two. I think Luiten had an opportunity there. He had multiple opportunities since then and just hasn't quite got over the line. But I think Joost Luiten, he started pretty well this year, 14th and 21st to kick off the season. He won at the Dutch. He was a runner-up at Carlton House at the 2013 Irish Open. So you've got that kind of little, I guess, blend of current form and designer course form. Whether that matters this many years on, I don't know. But what I do know about someone like Luiten is he's going to relish these kind of plodder, birdie fest type golf courses, and something that if there's anything familiar with, whether it be approaches into greens or types of greens or anything like that he might find kind of beneficial from previous events with Montgomery courses, then I'm going to lump into that. So I like what Joost Luiten's been doing. I think a win is on the horizon for him again at some point soon, Sky. In the first couple of weeks, 26th and 4th in strokes gained approach suggests that he was hitting the ball well, and 21st and 4th in tee to green. So it's there, and I think he's one of those players that, look, those first two events had the Rorys and the Fleetwoods and the Hattons and all those kind of players in them. Potentially not Hattons, but those players in them. And now he's coming into a field where it's what Olesen faced last week and Robin's home, right? So Joost Luiten at 35-1 for me.
Yeah, I mean, you can just guarantee he's going to be playing out of the fairway. He's going to be hitting greens, and at a course that seemingly, if I think the angle of playing that is something that is your specialty of looking into and in research, and has brought us rewards in past. So definitely like the trust there, and still scares me around a leaderboard, but who doesn't when you're teeing up in this type of event, right?
Yeah, I think, look, who do we really trust on the final day on Sunday in this field? I guess it's Rasmus, and even he has been fragile at times. Like, it's certainly not Jordan Smith. It's certainly not Xander Lombard. We don't know enough about Nakajima to suggest that he couldn't just go and win by 5 or 6 if he gets in the hunt. I think Alex Fitzpatrick has got that capability as well, but we don't know it yet. And then you've got a pair of Frenchmen in Rosner and Langasque that don't get over the line as much as they should. So it's as you say, you can apply it to the rest of them. So with Joost Luiten, on that subject as well, Bernd Wiesberger is another player that we knew so much about and knew what he was on the DP World Tour, who he was before he went over to the Live Tour. Didn't do it over there for whatever reason, didn't play well, but he's back here now, and we flagged him, didn't we, in his first start back? It was him and Laurie Kanzer as the kind of discussion points. We went with Laurie Kanzer because we kind of had that, okay, he's played well on the Live Promotions event, he's played well on Live towards the end of the season, whereas Bernd Wiesberger didn't have that. We've now seen where Wiesberger is with his game, and it isn't completely all the way back yet. That's absolutely certain. He's finished 21st and 37th in his first 2 events. But this is a weaker field again, and it's what he's done with his ball striking in that time that suggests to me that he could be okay. So it's only been 43rd and 30th of his approaches, but overall tee to green, 23rd and 9th for Wiesberger. And if you go back to those designer links, he was second to Luiten when he won at the Dutch in 2016. He was 7th in Turkey back in 2013 in a really strong field. So I like his experience on these kind of Montgomery courses. Again, don't know that that's going to be a massive factor, but it's great. It's great to add it. I would have looked at Luiten and Wiesberger anyway, given the strength of the field, and I think it's a valuable play. So I like what Wiesberger's done in part in a small sample size since he's been back, and I think he's going to build on that this week.
Yeah, the only question that remained really with me when looking at Bernd was, can he putt enough if they're going to have to score at this type of style of course? I mean, he's won at low scores in the 20s before. He's just known to go pretty dry on those greens, but you have some, again, price discovery with him trying to transfer over. Now he went from 150s down to 45s with the type of field. Maybe the 150s was always just kind of a guess, and what they've seen is to the liking. So okay with Bernd, but the one that really jumps out to me, and you kind of brought this angle up too, it was just, if we're looking at pure form, looking at a golfer who has literally not finished outside the top 15 in any event since September 3rd, and that was 28th when he had a 6th the week before, it's hard to argue that Frederick Lacroix doesn't have some of the absolute best form in the field. And when you look at where that's coming from, I mean, he's been an exceptional driver of the golf ball, not just long, but accurate with it. Last week was incredible off the tee, really good approach. I mean, he can just play. I think, we had this flash when he kind of got his original status a few years ago, and then to come back, again, no questions asked. I think it's just a little simplifying of it. I'm hard-pressed to find somebody who I think is in better form right now, and he can just carry it over into a field where Sunday can go anyone's way, and why couldn't it go to somebody who's just playing exceptional golf right now?
Yeah, I'll be joining on Frederick Lacroix. I just can't see any. I mean, I think I kind of raised him last week and said that he was just playing so well, and he finished off the year in great fashion in 2023, and he hadn't played yet, and that's why we were getting the odds that we were getting in the Ras Al Khaimah. And look, he didn't kick on over the weekend, but he actually moved up from the second round. He was 7th after 2 rounds and finished 3rd over the weekend, so he moved on a position or two. But whether he'd done enough to really contend, I don't know. But it was hard to keep up with someone like a Rasmus Højgaard and a Thorbjørn Olesen when they're dueling it out, right? And when you look at the current form over the last 15 weeks on Tour 6 and things like that, Olesen 1, Rasmus 2, Lacroix 3, Nakajima 4, Yannick Paul 5. So that suggests he should be living in that range. And honestly, I don't really understand why. Like when I'm being asked to take 45 to 1 about Lacroix when he was 100 odd to 1 a couple of weeks ago, or last week literally, it's tough. But then you wonder why he's not in this kind of 30, 33 to 1 bracket with Rosner, Langasque, Soderberg, right? That, like, what do they know about this player that we don't? So has he won on the DP World Tour? No, but there's no reason to suggest that he can't. And we've just seen Matthew Pavon go from never winning on the DP World Tour to winning on the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour in a matter of months. So you've just got to go with what you do know, and that's that he's hitting the ball incredibly well and coming to the course that suits him.
Yeah, I think that's just the fact of the number that's out there. Like, I mean, you compare it to even like an Alex Fitzpatrick, it's just the name value, gets him to 30s with 45. I totally agree. LaCroix jumped out to me immediately. I move my way down the odds board, but it brings me to somebody who I'm not in on yet. I think I'm going to pass overall, but it brings up the sponsor exemption conversation I wanted to have. So Harrison Endicott is getting a spot start this week. He had won PGA Tour Q School in dominating fashion, and then gets a sponsor start over here. If I thought he was on like every betting card in the world, it felt like for which event, the Amex, because there was a Pete Dye correlation that he did really well at Q School on Dye courses, meaning a plotter type should fit his alley, and you're getting 66-1 for a recent winner in a really strong field, a big field. I mean, Q School is a way stronger field, in my opinion, than what you're facing right now. Maybe way is a stretch, but a stronger field, yeah. I think, for it. And I guess here's a good classification. Let me see if I can do this. Endicott's win at Q School, Data Golf graded it as 3.12 strokes per round for him. So he gained 12 strokes on their adjusted field. Okay. What do we think they gave Olesen last week here? They gave Olesen 16. So about a stroke difference at Ras Al Khaimah for them. Well, I guess he also won by a bunch.
Yeah. He
won by 6.
6. He had a 4-shot lead at 1 point. 6.
So 16. Yeah. So I mean, let's just say roughly the same. We can kind of average it out with a dominating win for Olesen.
Yeah, I think the overriding sentiment is that he's coming again. We say this all the time. Like, player dropping down, played well recently on the PGA Tour. He's shown his form at Q School, and this is essentially a drop down in class. Whether the strength of field. The argument is that the people at Q School haven't had a very good season because otherwise it wouldn't be at Q School. But the way they play on those resort type courses to get their card back is completely different. And we're talking about players that have got their card back on the DPR Tour, right, and being good in this field. So I think with Endicott, the one thing I do like, in addition to what you've been saying there, is that if the wind comes around, shouldn't he be pretty good? I'm pretty sure he's quite good in the wind. He's played well on the Corn Ferry in the wind. So that could be a bonus for him.
Agreed. I mean, he's pretty tempting, 66s. I just didn't expect that. And now he's in via the FedEx Cup rankings, not even the sponsors exemptions. So this is good for him on getting up over here during a off week of a signature event on the PGA Tour.
He's playing next week as well. I'm pretty sure I looked on his Instagram and he's said 2 weeks in the Middle East, so he's playing both weeks.
Okay. Intriguing. Weird. Because when you think, well, I guess he maybe doesn't get in Waste Management next week.
Yeah.
He should. He won Q School. He should get in. Whatever. Either way. But I thought it was a sponsor exemption, but it brings me to the spot. If we read these off, man, this is in this type of field, like they got 4 sponsors exemptions. 1 goes to somebody local in Saad Al Sharif. And then we're looking at Thomas Bjorn, Nicholas Colzarts, and Cole Mady as the 3 other sponsors exemptions. We really need these guys to, like, if we're going to draw somebody from an Australian tour, draw the kid that just won twice on the Australian tour back-to-back times, who just turned pro, Kaburi. Like, can we get some really big sponsors exemptions into these fields to change up the mix, man? I love sponsors exemptions opportunities. And if we're giving them to Bjorn and Colzarts, that's just not worth it.
I don't get why they need them. I guess Colzarts didn't have the career that Bjorn had, but like there must be a category in which Bjorn gets in without needing like a sponsor's invite, right? Like
it would have to be. He plays every week.
He's like, he must be in this. Like there was always this argument that like David Howe used to get in every event forever. Like, and he was in this. I think pretty sure it was like an order of merit kind of category. I don't get why they're not in it. Like, I know that when you go to the PGA Tour and these players that won 9 years ago still getting wins, and you think, like, what are they doing? But it's taken away the opportunities, you said, to get someone that's pretty excited. I mean, what about like Aldrich Pot guys who are just,
Yeah.
absolutely butchered his name right, but like he'd be an interesting person to come over. And look, I don't know if it's do they get offered them and actually just don't accept them, and
Right.
like, there's probably some conversation like that. But yeah, I mean, look, if the sponsor exemptions are going to 2 players, I don't think I actually need them. Like, I don't know why they're actually even playing. Like, are they just already scouting for the Ryder Cup? Like, I don't really get it. Like, Colsaerts just goes and misses a cut and then gets in the commentary booth. That's his forte at the moment. He just goes and he doesn't even miss the cut sometimes, but he just goes and gets straight into the commentary booth, right? Like, he's obviously just on site, so he's like, "Oh, I might as well play." Like,
it's weird.
It's bizarre. I guess it's just Bjorn is just literally following around Rasmus Højgaard all year, and just keeping tabs on him. But
I'm just hoping, like, when we get fields that don't include Rasmus and some of these and Jordan Smith, like, I hope they take better opportunities as positive exemptions, and I hope players take advantage of it too, because you could come in and you can make a really big difference, I feel like, of your career trajectory from a few good weeks.
I can't believe that people, PGA Tour people that are on the kind of periphery, like a Harrison Endicott, wouldn't want to play these weeks, even if it was on a sponsorship exemption, looking at what Pavon's just done.
Yeah.
Like, okay, look, you've got to win, so you can play on the DPR Tour for the rest of the season now. You can get yourself into the top 10 and get your PGA Tour card back that way. Like, it's got to be, you listen to these guys that played, you listen to the U-Lines and the Brooks Koepkas and people like that played on the PGA Tour, the DPR Tour first, and Kitayama and people like that, they all talk about it glowingly, saying like how much fun it was to play on it, how, you know, it sort of hardened their game and things like that. So, yeah, I don't know why people don't do it. I don't really get it. And if they're looking at it like, oh, I should beat these guys, then great, come and beat them then, because that's even better, right? So yeah, winning breeds winning, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to take a really long look into Endicott just to see, but I'm okay passing in the range. Is there anybody else in the mid range for you that makes sense?
So Richie Ramsey caught my eye a little bit. I think he's someone that would play well at these sort of golf courses. I still think Hoshino will play well at some point and potentially contend. The other person, Sky, Aaron Cockerell, is consistently just playing well, and he keeps playing well on courses that I don't think he's going to play well at. I think he's like, oh, he's not going to be long enough to compete there. And look, he does, like, he finished 23rd last week. He didn't compete, right? But it was solid again. Bookend 67s, followed up with a 4th at Dubai Desert Classic, where you wouldn't necessarily expect him to play very well because you'd need to be a bigger hitter. 15th in South Africa. He's another one. He's made like 6 or 7 cuts in a row, and look, you can't just go, okay, he's made cuts in a row, he's suddenly going to win, but they're positive results as well. They're top 30s, top 25. So Cockerell kind of came to, and I'll tell you why he immediately came to my mind is because I was looking at those correlated courses, and it was another Canadian. It's not Cockerell, it's like Austin Connolly that used to play these courses really well.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so close in name value that potentially they're just going to feed off one another. But that's a really poor reason to back someone, so I didn't. But he caught my eye. And then Brandon Stone is another one who I flagged last week and did play well. So, yeah, those are the ones in that range.
All right. Yeah, I think I could safely go into the next two for me, and they're kind of literally along the same lines of not overcomplicating things, of looking into form, of looking maybe an angle that they probably could benefit from a course that isn't as driver heavy as Ras Al Khaimah is. And closing out the year, 2 golfers came into with 4 top 20s in a row, or 4 top 20s out of the last 5 events, basically, and popped on leaderboards. And for those guys, to me, it was Renato Paratore and Darius Van Driel, both of which lack the distance to compete sometimes at those really big ballpark courses that need it. Now, Paratore is not somebody who's even accurate either. Driving is just not in his wheelhouse at all. Van Driel can play from the fairway. I mean, 9th at the Joburg, 4th at the Alfred Dunhill, did really well in Q School prior to that. His South African Open Championship, he was 16th at the halfway point, ended up at 52nd. but just somebody who's played substantially well for a month stretch, and we just haven't seen him since December. If you go into, Paratore, you get the 2nd, 20th, 18th to close out the year at the South African, Alfred Dunhill, Mauritius, and Q School was also very appealing for him. He just had a pretty decent close to 2023. Why are they 90 and 100 to 1? We just haven't seen them. I think there's enough each way value in both of those guys that just to keep that form running when they were catching my eyeballs just on radars and leaderboards, I think is just plenty for me to back them at their numbers.
So I think Paratore of those two is the eye-catching one, right? Like, we talked about LaCroix last week and how he finished the year 13th, 3rd, 17th, and 5th. Doesn't play in 2024, so you don't know what's going to happen. Oh, wait, he goes and finishes 3rd immediately, right? Paratore finishes 2nd, 20th, 18th, hasn't played in 2024. He makes the most obvious sense in that respect that, like, you're being given a number because we don't know. He hasn't played well last week. So I think Paratore is probably the one of those two. And actually, while you were talking about that, I think Paratore might be the other bet. Van Drill's interesting. Like, Van Drill is someone. Didn't he have a chance to win? Was it last year? Like, he had a chance to win. We talked about him like he'd always come up in like ball striking like numbers, right? And then wouldn't really do anything. And then I'm sure he had a chance to, like, he may have like 4 or 5 weeks where he played really well and then contended for a win. That seems to add up in my head.
I mean, approach, his last 3 events, he was 3rd, 34th, and 2nd in strokes gained approach. He's got an odd game, but enough that he has just shown on spots I just didn't expect him to play well at to close out the year and be now 100 to 1 again. He's just odds are never low on him. No.
I think at least with Paratore, we know he can win. Like, we know that.
Yeah.
Whereas Van Driel, we don't. But yeah, similar profile. Look, Van Driel is the 14th ranked golfer in this kind of form guide that I've got here in terms of current form. And he's, what is he? Probably, I don't know, 30th, 40th down the odds board, right? More than that.
Yep.
So in that respect, it should just be value. I like the Paratore shout. I think that might be an interesting one because I think he'll benefit from this kind of, I don't have to keep it straight and long, right? Like, where his second was the South African Open. That's a really tough test. Those
right.
2 South African tests and the Mauritius Open can throw up some spanners. So yeah, I think Paratore might be the one. My last one for me that I'm definitely going with, I don't even know if I like this as much as Paratore now, but it's Eddie Pepperell. The ball striking isn't there, so I can't claim that. Like, he finished 16th last week despite pretty average ball striking numbers, but he's been 3rd and 6th at that Dutch Open course that I've referenced, 22nd at the Irish Open and 10th at the Turkish Airlines Open. So he's played a lot of these kind of course designs well. The 16th last week after a real run of missed cuts was quite promising in a plodders event, and I just think in Bahrain against a weak field, Eddie Pepperell at 100 to 1, 90 to 1, whatever it is that you can get, depending on whether you want to play the each way or not, seems a good play for Eddie Pepperell. So yeah, I'm going to play him, but I do like this Paratore shout that you've kind of thrown at me in the middle of this. This is interesting.
I mean, when Eddie's active on Twitter, we know his game's in a better place, and I saw him responding all day yesterday to different things. So, I mean, I can never go wrong with Eddie. I like Eddie at these spots.
What about Kiefer?
Somebody, I think it's Barrows on him too.
Like 48th, 31st, and 4th to start the year. So he's got better every week. The ball striking's getting better, 36th, 37th, 18th in strokes gained approach, and 51st, 25th, 39th in tee to green. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but isn't it a sort of event where Kiefer can just go and rattle off 8 birdies in one round and suddenly he's in contention? He's
been popping at these like driver heavy courses, so like Porsche European, BMW International, and then last week when I wouldn't expect it because he's not long off the tee. So he's kind of battling a different. I feel like I'd never bet Kiefer. Like I don't know why I never land there, but
he's pretty boring, to be fair. Like he's. Are you not going back to Sam Jones?
Well, we'll get into the long shots because
Okay.
I think there's a few that are intriguing. Before we even start the triple digits, I guess Vandriel is. We'll make sure we give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us daily fantasy sports picks and bets, the mix on all different podcast platforms. Mayo Media Network gives us a lot of love and support. So if you can give that to us too, rate, review, subscribe, it goes such a long way. We appreciate all the comments and you guys interacting with us on Twitter, especially in these type of events. I think, like Tom said from the beginning, it's telling our stories on guys that are going to make impacts in big events and be low owned to win you some opportunity in DFS and on the PGA Tour side. So get them early over here before they're bigger names stateside. So and I just love these type of events. I think it is just fun for us, and we get into a section of the odds board in which is pretty intriguing overall. You asked the question, am I going back to Sam Jones? At this moment, I am not, because I don't know what to do anymore with somebody like him. And it's 10th after 36 holes, has a bad weekend. It goes backwards. I think he was at 10 under. He finished at 8 under. But like he continues to have those like rounds every tournament.
Yeah.
So do I stop betting him, or do I just bet him forever at 500 to 1? I don't know what to do, Tom. I don't know what to do.
Like when he was up there, like we had nothing really going for us, and then you had this 500 to 1 shot that was in contention, 7th off round 1, 7th off round 2, and I think, like, do you want to jump off someone with that kind of potential? Probably not, but there's always this thing of like you can't just keep throwing money at 500. There's a reason they're 500 to 1 shots, right? Like it's just eventually the payoff. Like how many times are you going to bet on him before he doesn't win, and then when he wins, you go, oh well, I told you, and it's like, yeah, but you've bet him 300 times. So it's a tough one. I think the quality is there.
And that's hard. Like, why should I? Because, okay, so I guess the question is, I'm definitely betting Grenville Wood.
Yeah.
I think everybody seems to be betting Grenville Wood, right? And if we give a quick reason why, played well the last few weeks, and his spot stars now that he's taken Dubai residency, getting into these events, what a by him, right? Playing extremely well last week, earning spot in this one by a top 10 exemption from last week. I saw a video of his swing. Man, I think it was Eddie. I think Eddie replied and said, I haven't seen anybody with faster swing speed in real life, like playing with him. So we know he led the field in driving distance last week. He finished second at this tour at this course in 2019. So we have familiarity, plays well in this area of the world. He's 125, I believe, now stateside, maybe 140s if you're lucky with the each way. I mean, he's been long odds the last few weeks. What do we expect? If Sam Jones would have finished 7th, he probably would be 140.
Yeah.
So do you wait till he's 140 again, or do you try to catch it at 5? I think you're talking me back into just betting him.
Yeah, sorry about that. Look, he's played Grenville Wood, going to Grenville Wood, right? He's played 3 DP World Tour events, and he's finished inside the top 10 in 2 of them.
Yeah.
And has been 6th in Qatar, 9th at Raz. So, and he's finished 12th at the Saudi Open in between all that as well. So the only places he's missed the cut, Saudi Aramco Invitational, literally don't know what happened in that event. And the Dubai Desert Classic where it's a stronger field. So the Grenville Wood case is very simple, right? Like probably just play him all the time. We're in this kind of Middle East, African, Indian swing, right? And then when we're actually in true European events, you can probably jump off for a little while. Like there's nothing in his Challenge Tour repertoire to suggest that he's going to absolutely light it up in France, Spain, Wentworth, whatever, right? Unless he completely develops as a player. Because when you look at his Challenge Tour stuff, it was 2nd in the Abu Dhabi Challenge, and then it's like 18th in the UAE Challenge, 43rd in the Swiss. So like his game just completely changes. So play him where you know where to play him. I think this is probably your last good week to play. Where are they playing next week, Sky?
So next week they get over to Qatar.
Qatar, right? So playing for the next 2 weeks and then jump off. Like
Yeah.
it's probably one of those with Grenville Wood. So I do like that. The Sam Jones thing is interesting. Like I just think there's something there in him that you should probably stick with. The one question I wanted to ask, and this is right in your wheelhouse. Mathis Bassard is 270 to 1.
So that was like the next argument I was going to make. Do you jump on the 1 week form of Bassard, who really hasn't shown anything else?
No.
Right? Extremely good approach, last week. Was I would say more than decent college player at Illinois, right? Illinois had a very strong team. He racked up top tens, at least 6 of them, I believe, in 2023. Challenged for a 1 top 15, and then he plays really well with approach. I mean, if he putted anything last week, he would have easily hit the each way board.
Yeah.
So how does that? I mean, he got through qualifying school, right? He played well there. Do you play the jumping game off of short form, or do you plant your flag more with guys in which you feel confident in the things you've seen?
So I think with Bassard, so he was 48th at the Alfred Dunhill, but he was actually 30th going into the final round. He was kind of in and around the top 30 all week there, 30th after round 1, 26th after round 2, 30th after round 3. That's pretty solid at the Alfred Dunhill, where I'm assuming he hadn't played before, and that's actually a quite hard test to kind of get used to, right? And he missed the cut by a bunch in the South African Open, so we won't even talk about that. But the Mauritius Open to finish the year, 73-71 to open up there, and he was 66th after round 2 to miss the cut. So he was right on the cut line. So that kind of suggests, in a very small sample size, that he's pretty comfortable already in his last 3 events. As you said, Illinois, Thomas Peters was tweeting about him, obviously, because he's a Belgian Illinois golfer, right? That we had that discussion, I think, in the preview show, that they all kind of just go with Illinois. The concern is he just had an all pro, all career, best he's ever going to do approach and tee screen numbers, and he's probably never going to replicate them again. The danger with that is that actually this could be him as a golfer, and we just don't know it. Like I know you've been on with Svensson the last few weeks, thinking the tee screen game's there, the off the tee game is there. Is Bassard just a really good ball striker? And if he is,
I mean, so it's out of 4 events, right, or 4 rounds, he was 11th, 2nd, 6th, then 53rd. So approach numbers were consistent for 54 holes.
Yeah. And he was good at ball striking that week in South Africa as well.
Where was he on the leaderboard going into Sunday? He was 7th. So, I mean, a natural first sniff of things to play a little poorly on Sunday.
But also that 71 on Sunday was similar to his opening 70. So not too concerned. Like he shot 64 round 2, 68 round 3. If he'd have gone 70, 64 and then 77, 76, I'd be really concerned. Like, okay, he just couldn't cope with being in the mix. But he backed up that 64 with a 68 on Saturday. It's pretty impressive. The 71 on Sunday could almost just be a few putts didn't drop or whatever. Or he lost his
stroke putting.
Yeah. So like a Louis Diega wouldn't have played out of his skin on Sunday. I think he played okay, actually. Probably a bad example, 67, 68 over the weekend. But like, what did Alex Fitzpatrick do on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's like everything in me says you bet Bassard, right? You bet him. And you don't jump off Jones. I don't know. Like, maybe you bet both here.
I think the thing we've got to do this week is you've got to have a guy at the top that we're going to plant our flag to, and that's LaCroix. We're both happy with him at 45 to 1. I've gone with Loughton and Wiesberger as well. So I think you have to have those guys this week, because I think we've gone with the impression of like anyone can win the Raz, anyone can win this, so don't worry about it. We'll just bet some long shots, and it's not planning out that way. So we've got to take these guys that we're taking at the top. LaCroix is the one that we're going to go with. He's playing so well. Hopefully he does it. I think you can still get creative down here. The Paratore one, the more you talked about it, the more I'm excited. I think that is the parallel with what LaCroix was doing going into the season. So
yep.
I think Paratore is the one in that kind of triple digits that I like. So I'm going to add him. And then it's the kind of bizarre conversation of, can I have a sixth golfer?
I mean, I always bet 6 is normally like my cap,
Yeah.
but like if I'm way more down the odds board, which I am here, I'm not as concerned. I mean, like other guys did like jump out to me a little bit too. Like Sam Bairstow, has now made 3 cuts in a row. He was 23rd, 34th, 32nd. Joel Gierbach was 20th last week with some really good approach numbers. 17th previously at this course, where he was the first round leader in 2020. I thought that was, intriguing.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of ways. I mean, I even thought like Ugo Kusad, he was inside the top 10 after one round last week after being on him. He played really well, 34th. So if we think it could be similar, I saw somebody tipped him. It was maybe Golf Gambler on Twitter was on Kusad this week. Thought that could be interesting too, going back to the well there and just staying in the lane if we think the course could be familiar again. I mean, Micheluzzi's now in this range with some of these guys too, which seems a little crazy. A lot of angles to go.
I think the Micheluzzi one's interesting. I feel like people, like, he's had one miscut and everyone's gone, like, he's not, like, he's Australian and that's it. Like, he can play well in Australia and he can't do it over here. Like, that's a big judgment to make so quickly. Like, didn't he play really well in the Open Championship for a period of time? It's
right. Like, if Nakajima missed the cut, would have he been 60 instead of 18s now? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'm trying to look at. I want to read through Sam Jones's rounds one more time to close us out, just to like look through these pops, right?
Yeah.
Because it's now been. I mean, it's been a substantial amount of time. So you got 6 starts.
6th after 54 holes in the Australian Open.
Yeah.
He was 4th after round 1 of the Alfred Dunhill, 30th going into the final day, finished 25th, which is a positive. He missed the cut in Mauritius, but he was 66th after 2 rounds. So again, a little bit like the last one we spoke about, like it was just a miscut. Bassard as well. And then last week, 7th after the first 2 rounds. I guess the thing with Sam Jones, it goes 73, 77 is the concern. Like he wasn't really even in the mix and he kind of fell away. But I sometimes look at that Sky as like, is that nerves? And I always level this to Sean Crocker, right? Like, is it nerves or is it just an impatience to just get in contention? Like he knows he's playing well. Do I just want to try and attack everything and take advantage of it when I can? And I think there's sometimes that. Everyone just assumes if someone goes backwards over the weekend that they're just scared to compete. And I don't think that's all. I don't think you can level that at everyone. There's certainly people you can level that at, but I think with someone like Sam Jones, it could be just naivety that gets in the way.
Yeah, I think like Aussie Open might have been nerves, right? 6 going into Sunday in your home country, that makes sense. Yeah, I think all of it's just telling me you don't stop backing him. Like, why when you feel this way about a player who popped for 36? If this is the thing, if he closed with that 36 instead of opened with it, we'd be chomping at the bit. You know what I mean?
And he's 350 to 1 still. Like, it's not like we're talking about someone that's gone from 500 to 1 to 80 to 1. You've got decisions made. Like, he's still a massive number. So you should be betting him again. Not to encourage, gambling too much, but
Tom, we're doing a gambling show.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna go. I think the card sets up to bet them all personally.
Yeah.
So you can start with your card, and then I'll close out mine.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go with Joost Luiten at 35 to 1, Bernd Wiesberger at 40 to 1, Frederick Lacroix at 45 to 1, Eddie Pepperell at 100 to 1, as well as Renato Paratore at 100 to 1. And then I'm going to go with Bassard at 270 to 1. It just seems wild that I wouldn't put him in my card. So that's
the 270 is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm on with you. Frederick Lacroix, 45 to 1 with each way here. Renato Paratore, 90 to 1. Darius Van Driel, 100. Joshua Grenville Wood, 125. Mattis Bassard, 150. And then sticking with Sam Jones, 350 with each way. There, 150 gives you 6 spots for Bassard here in the States. Is that an each way that gives you 270 over there?
Over here, he is. I'm just looking at your guys' odds. Over here, he is
Because you could definitely do the 270 with a separate top 5 bet.
No, it's 150 over here with each way, but we get 7 places. So
yeah, so he's already down to 220 in the States quickly at that same book. I think I'm comfortable still getting the 6 each way spots at 150 for him. So
no, that's probably the more sensible way to play him. So I'm happy with the 150 being quoted. That's fine.
Knowing that somebody 12 to 1 is going to win this week, right, Tom?
Exactly. Like, I don't know what we're doing. We should have just wrapped this show up with we're going to both bet Rasmus Højgaard and kept it to 20 minutes. But where's the fun in that, hey?
Amen. Perfect. Well, I appreciate you, Tom. Let's have a dual winner since we have a lot of alignment on the card this week. Love that for us. And best of luck stateside 2 here. Pebble Beach should be a fun event and fun stretch of golf overall on both sides of the pond. So thank you as always, Tom, and we'll catch you next week, everybody.
Thanks, Guy.